Okay, I have 1 o'clock and I want to honor your time. Thank you so much for being here, all of you. I appreciate. Cheryl, I'm going to ask you, can you see, I'm going to put the agenda in the chat one more time. And can you please tell me if you can see the latest one? Just give me a yes or a no or a thumbs up. Yes, there, excellent. So please, everybody, open the agenda in a separate tab and you will be referring to it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Elise Belanger Bailey. Yes, I do know my own name. And you have chimed into the session, Implementing Inclusionary Practices Using Universal Design for Learning. And this is a presentation for leadership. If you would like to know how to introduce and implement pretty much anything, you can use the same resources, the same thoughts and things like that. But for this time, we're going to be talking about inclusionary practices. And as I said, I'm Elise Belanger Bailey from ESD 113 in Tumwater, next to our beautiful state capitol. At the moment, I would like to thank and acknowledge all the people who helped me put this together. I am part of a group called the Inclusionary Practices Project. We call ourselves the IPP9. There's one of us in each ESD. And we have worked on putting a series of 12 modules together about inclusionary practices and universal design for learning. And that's the introduction and everything you need to know. And then we have a second set of modules coming out this year about theory into action. So actually using the UDL, what it will look like in classes and what that means and how to do it. This particular program I built on the skeleton by Galia Owl in ESD 112 and Anne Renneker in OESD 114. And I would like to acknowledge their work and their scholarship. Me, who am I? Like I said, my name is Elise, not like you spell it, that's how you say it. And I am currently the inclusion, I told you that, don't need to repeat. Let's see, about me. I've been a principal, I've been a head of school, I've been a director of student services, I have been a teacher, obviously, and a mother of 5, and I have 2 special needs students who are now in their 30s and grown and on their own, which is great. And I recently got married, and so we have together, between the 2 of us, 11 adult children, plus in-laws, plus all sorts of other fun things. So we're busy, and we just moved. So if you see boxes in the background, that's why. This is my house. Ensuring educational equity, which is something that our keynote speaker, Dr. Muhammad, discussed earlier. Ensuring educational equity goes beyond equality. It requires education leaders to examine the ways current policies and practices result in disparate outcomes for our students of color, students living in poverty, students receiving special education, English language learner services, students who identify as LGBTQ+, highly mobile student populations. Ensuring educational equity also requires education leaders to develop an understanding of historical contexts, engage students, families, and community representatives as partners in decision-making, and actively dismantle systemic barriers, replacing them with policies and practices that ensure all students have access to the instruction and support their need to succeed in our schools. Thank you, Thomasina. I appreciate that comment. We would also like to acknowledge our land usage. And this refers to the building and property upon which OSPI is built, and also ESD 113 is very close by. Today, those of us representing OSPI respectfully acknowledge that the agency is located on the traditional lands of the Squaxin Island Nation, descendants of the maritime people who lived and prospered along the shores of the southernmost inlets of the Salish see. We ask each of you to show gratitude to the tribal nations where you are currently located. We acknowledge the commitment of all Pacific Northwest tribes to the resurgence of their traditional ways and their respect and protection of all peoples, not only those who are living, but also those who have gone before and who are yet to be born. We pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, and to a valued resource the tribes have defined as their children. They are the tribes of the future. They are the future for us all. We raise our hands to all sovereign tribes who have stewarded these beautiful lands throughout the generations. Next, we'll talk a little bit about logistics. We want to emphasize that this training is intended for administrators and leadership teams who are walking the path to a more inclusive school. Regardless of the role you serve today, you will be invited to consider the systems and structures in your building or district that could be improved or created to better serve all students. Everyone has a part to play in shifting the system in order to engage and empower every single student. So when we talk about leadership, we are inviting all of you to take action, speak up, and contribute to changing systems and mindsets. Each of you brings a valuable perspective to our work today, and we hope you will all find ways to identify challenges and solutions around improving inclusionary practices. And we are honored to support your leadership in this incredibly important work. As the slide shows, we'll be running about 80 minutes long. There will be opportunities for bio breaks. You need to open a copy of the agenda, probably in a separate tab. And please note that all the slides are covered by the Creative Commons copyright. As we go through, you'll see some icons on some slides. It's right up there in the corner, and it symbolizes universal design for learning. The words that are around the swirl are action and expression, engagement, and representation. And those are the three pillars and theories of universal design for learning. It'll represent a UDL strategy that I will be employing and we will be experiencing. This whole presentation has been produced and built on universal design for learning principles. So I hope you will find it easy. I hope you will find it accessible. We have our thinking targets. This is a UDL strategy. One must be very clear about the goals of the lesson. When I was a teacher, I always called it the object of the game. I wanted to know what was the object of the game. For instance, in golf, to get the lowest score. Okay, that also frames how I take in all information. So the object of the game is to learn about diffusion of innovation and systems change, understand the stages of implementation science, and identify system drivers. I'm going to check the chat for just a moment. Okay, nobody has any questions. Great. Let's start with definitions. The definitions of inclusionary practices. I have published here OSPI's definition of inclusionary practices. Notice that all is bolded, and that was mine. Why do you think that would be? And what is meant by all? If you can reply in the chat, that would be great. Why would I highlight all, and what is meant by all? How would a teacher implement this belief in practice? Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, is a practice endorsed by the Department of Education, enshrined in IDEA and ESSA. So what is UDL? Universal Design for Learning is not a curriculum or a script. I'll let you read this. I'll give you just a minute to read this. UDL is a proactive instructional design process to meet the needs of all students in all classes. That definition is by Rabelais, who is one of my very favorite authors, and she has a wonderful book, and I can give you that information if you wish. When we say all, we mean not just the children who are in the high part of the bell curve. We mean all the children, from those who need supports, all the way to those who are highly capable or gifted. And the reason we say all is because many times, and we plan for all, because many times our students who are highly capable may become bored. They start to act out or they check out and they actually lose out in their education. A little note, if you'd like to know more about the theory and practice of universal design for learning, please attend my session on Wednesday from 2 to 3:30 or contact me directly. My information will be repeated at the end of the session. A UDL strategy that I am using today, even though I'm sure we probably all know these because you've been in the field and you're highly skilled practitioners, is not everybody knows the definition of every vocabulary word in a lesson. So not assuming knowledge of the vocabulary for the lesson really reaches all students. So here are some of the 3 things we're going to be talking about, the 3 sections. First, systems change. And this is a fundamental change in policies, procedures, relationships, and power structures, as well as deeply held values and norms. Initiative. This is an act or strategy intended to resolve a difficulty or improve a situation, a fresh approach to something. Full implementation or adoption. The organizational process that leads to diffusion as a systematic process. All of these are included on your agenda, so you may click on these links at your convenience. Diffusion of innovation is a theory that seeks to explain how, why, and at what rate new ideas and technologies spread. Everett Rogers, a professor of communication studies, popularized the theory in his book, Diffusion of Innovations. The book was first published in 1962, a year after I was born. It's really old, and is now in its 5th edition. It may be old, but it has proven true time and time again. I'd like you to think for a moment and put your answer in the chat. How long, based on your experience, how long does it take to reach full implementation of an initiative? Based on your experiences, how long does it take to reach a full implementation of an initiative? Thomasina, thank you, 3 to 5 years. Michael, 3 to 5 years. 2 to 3 years. Christina, several years. 3 to 5 years from Cheryl, exactly. Anybody else? I think you're going to be surprised. 4 to 7 years. It takes 4 to 7 years to reach full implementation. Oops, sorry. So what is your reaction to that finding? And does it resonate with you? Is that surprising? Yes, it does take longer than we expect. And I found, Thomasina, thank you. So, Woa, I found as a principal, I was very, very frustrated when we would start new initiatives. And I worked in high poverty. Yes, Michael, exactly. Districts usually give you 2 years. I was, like you said, Michael, I was very frustrated. I worked in high poverty, high needs districts in the San Francisco Bay Area in the most disadvantaged portions. And like you said, Michael, they give you 1 or 2 years. Oh, we're not seeing anything, so they throw it away. And people get frustrated. And your teachers, once you've done this once or twice, your teachers go, why should I bother? This is just going to go away. And I run into that often. And I'm sure you have heard that too as leaders. Now we're going to watch a video titled Link to Diffusion of Innovation, the Adoption Curve. Note, you don't need that. And I put the link for this in your slide, or I will put it in the chat so that you can access it or copy it later. Here's the video. All right, here we go. Hopefully this works.
Have you ever noticed that some people adopt new products or behaviors sooner than others? In 1962, Everett Rogers, a professor of world psychology, developed a theory called the diffusion of innovations to explain this phenomenon. Rogers found that individuals within any society fall into one of 5 different adopter groups based on how early or how quickly they adopt an innovation. Rogers' theory tells us that if you want to promote the widespread adoption of a new behavior like these, you need to market to each adopter differently, using distinct communication channels and messages. Let's look at each group to find out more. The innovators are a small but important group because they are always the first to learn about and adopt an innovation. They are risk-taking, adventurous, and like being on the cutting edge. The innovators are responsible for introducing innovations to the larger population because they share their experiences with their friends and community. The early adopters are also a small, forward-thinking group and are often highly respected as opinion leaders. Their endorsement of an innovation plays a key role in what we call crossing the chasm, which is when the adoption of an innovation bridges the gap between the trendsetters and the majority. About 2/3 of people in the population fall into either the early or late majority groups. The early majority take time to make decisions. They will observe others' experiences and will only adopt the product once they are convinced it has real benefits and that it is the new status quo. The late majority are more resistant to change, but they are very responsive to peer pressure. They want innovations to be very well tested and widely used before they will risk trying. Finally, the last group to adopt a new product or innovation is called the laggards. Laggards are highly resistant to change, and they also can be hard to reach with marketing campaigns because they often have very minimal exposure to media. Laggards wait until an innovation is completely mainstream before they adopt it. In some cases, they never do. Think of some global innovations in recent years. Social media, for example, spread very fast and many people adopted it within a few years. Other innovations, such as the use of solar power, spread much more slowly. It may take decades to reach widespread adoption. So the next time you're promoting a new product or behavior, consider the theory of diffusions of innovation and tailor your communication channels and messages. This will improve your chance of catalyzing widespread adoption.
Thomasina, you said, wow, how to maintain and sustain when we have high turnover in teacher assignments and or administration assignments. You're absolutely right. That is a deep concern. I will not be addressing it here, but if you would like to discuss that, I'm very happy to talk with you about that one-on-one or some other way. So why do you think I just had you watch a video about marketing strategies? Think about, what are you trying to do? Get buy-in or sell inclusionary practices? Who is your customer? Your staff, sometimes parents and community, but mostly your staff. And what is your goal? 100% participation, preferably with enthusiasm. However, that's the goal. Sometimes you don't quite realize it. As the narrator said, there are strategies for different adopter categories. And this is exceedingly important for principals to realize, understand, and to utilize. Innovators, the first group, these are the people who want to be the first to try the innovation. They are venturesome and interested in new ideas. These people are very willing to take risks and are often the first to develop new ideas. Very little, if anything, needs to be done to appeal to this population. Early adopters, and these are the people who represent opinion leaders. They enjoy leadership roles and embrace change opportunities. They're already aware of the need to change and so are very comfortable adopting new ideas. Strategies to appeal to this population include how-to manuals and information sheets on implementation. They do not need a lot of information to convince them to change. These are people from these two groups are the people you want in maybe to pilot the project of inclusionary practices. They might be the ones you want to start with. They will set the examples for others. And again, I can help you do that, and we can talk about what that would look like. For the early majority, these people are rarely leaders, but they do adopt new ideas before the average person. That said, they typically need to see evidence that the innovation works before they are willing to adopt it. Strategies to appeal to this population include successful stories and evidence of the innovation's effectiveness. The late majority, these people are skeptical of change and will only adopt an innovation after it has been tried by the majority. Strategies to appeal to this population include information on how many other people have tried the innovation and have adopted it successfully. These are going to be the people that want to see everybody else's class using them. They want to do a lot of observing of how it's done. They want to see that it really is an effective practice. And your laggards are bound by tradition and very conservative. They are very skeptical of change and are the hardest group to bring on board. Strategies to appeal to this population include statistics, unfortunately, fear appeal, and pressure from people of the other groups. And they may never adopt. Take a moment for self-reflection, and this is private. Please don't put this in the chat, but just think. Which adopter category have you been part of in the past? And consider multiple contexts, like in education, technology, fashion, whatever. Does your category, adopter category, change? Mine does. When I'm in education, I am sometimes one of the innovators or the early adopters. And how did your experience change depending on your adopter category? So just go ahead and contemplate for a moment. Using those questions, what we're now going to do is we're going to do what we call independent research. If we were on Zoom, I would have you put you in breakout rooms, have you look at a resource, you would discuss it in a small group, and then you would come back and we would share out as a large group. Unfortunately, that's not an option here with Hopin. So we want to give you an opportunity to explore recesses on the diffusion of innovation. This is a UDL component here, and what we're doing is we're giving you choice on the path and pace of your learning, providing a variety of modes for the resources. You'll find articles. You'll find a video. You'll see many different types of things as we go. Some of them will appeal to one type, others another. Choose whichever one you want. So look at the very top of your agenda and find the section labeled Independent Research 1. You will see 4 resources you can explore. Choose one that looks the most interesting to you. You'll have 10 minutes to explore, take a bio break or need it, and then we'll come back together to discuss. As you explore, think about the questions on the slide. Consider multiple contexts of being an adopter policy. Does your adopter category change? And how did your experience change depending on your adopter category? I will see everybody back and listening at 1:37. If you have questions and you'd like to put them in the chat, now is a good time and I can answer. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. If you have just joined us, please make sure that you open the link that I'm putting in the chat and open a copy of the agenda in a separate tab. The agenda has all the resources in it. And right now we're looking at the first section of resources. Choose one, take some time to explore it. If you need a bio break, now's the time to take one. And return at 1:37. If you would like to share out any thoughts you're having in the chat, please do so. And we'll come back in 5 minutes, a 5-minute warning, 5 minutes. And we have 2 more minutes, so you might want to wrap up if you're still researching, if you're still looking at resources or whatever. We have about 2 minutes, and we will start back up again. Meanwhile, it would be great if you would, any of you that feel like it, if you'd like to share some ahas or questions or ideas you think the group could benefit from, please put that in the chat now. And if you have a reaction to the resource that you looked at, we would love to know that. I'd love to know what's gripping you and what's getting your attention. A UDL strategy is to provide multiple ways to respond. Unfortunately, we can't do that in this situation because we only have the chat available to us. But if I were doing this on a different platform, I might have you do, again, respond in the chat, respond out loud. I might have you draw something and put it up and show us a picture or things like that. So multiple ways of response. So please go ahead and put any thoughts you have in the chat. I'd like to know what you're thinking. Okay, seeing nothing in the chat, we shall go on. Implementation science. Now that you've heard about the diffusion of innovation model, which looks at how individuals within groups and systems adopt changes, we will now look at how systems adapt to change. Schools are large systems with individuals within them, So it's important to look at both individuals and systems. What is implementation science? Implementation science bridges the gap between theory and effective practice, or the act of carrying an intention into effect. It is the study of how evidence-based programs or initiatives can be embedded to maximize successful outcomes. It recognizes that people need to be ready for change and that creating optimal conditions for an intervention is crucial to its success and maintenance. Implementation science is fundamental to the design of successful interventions. So why is it important for us to know this process? Remember what I told you? It's very important that your teachers and you, what's the object of the game? The field of implementation science tries to close the gap between what we know and what we do, sometimes referred to as the know-do gap, by identifying and addressing the barriers that slow or stop the uptake of proven interventions and evidence-based practice. And there is a difference between when an initiative is presented with passively letting it happen, or helping it to happen, or making it happen. The role of an implementation team is to make it happen. We want to be part of programs that happen and make change. Therefore, it is important to know how we can do it and what factors are associated with that happening. Why is it important for you to know this? Within every organization, there are many layers of staff, policies, systems, and barriers. Promoting positive change, therefore, requires a targeted but multifaceted approach. And if a teacher believes that an intervention is beneficial, they will be more likely to implement it with fidelity. Therefore, teachers who have previous experience of an evidence-based intervention, which is implemented poorly, thereby yielding disadvantageous outcomes, are unlikely to be motivated to implement the same intervention successfully. Due to these human belief systems, poor implementation could therefore impact on future implementation potentials. Michael, this goes very much to your point where they give you 2 years to implement a new initiative. It's done poorly, haphazardly, and people give up on it. In such cases, the administrators have to sensitively challenge the beliefs that have led to evidence-based programs being perceived as ineffective. We need to work together to design and evaluate initiatives by properly adhering to implementation guidelines. Only then is there the best chance of supporting positive changes and having maximum impact on the lives of children and families. The UDL strategy I'm using for this slide is knowing the why of what you are learning is important to bring engagement. When you demonstrate the relevance, it can elevate the engagement level of your team. The stages of implementation. There are 4 of them: exploration, installation, initial implementation, and full implementation. Knowing that there are strategies is important because we can not only talk about what full implementation looks like. While that might be our goal, we need to be aware of the stages that it takes us to get there so we are not overwhelmed by the prospect of full implementation right off the bat. When I have been presenting the concept of inclusionary practices using universal design for learning to leadership and our staff teams, this is the deer in the headlight moment. You've all seen it. The tension level immediately rises like a billionaire's rocket. And when I tell them that it will take 4 to 7 years of baby steps to implement, everything gently floats back to earth and lands with a little. Understanding the stages. Change is a process, not an event. Because implementation occurs in stages, someone must plan and negotiate the journey through these stages to engagement and support educators and administrators in order to effectively launch the work. It is important to ensure that those doing the work have the skills and support structures to feel competent and confident in using the innovation as intended. Stage-based work helps us successfully navigate the journey. Starting with an awareness that implementation occurs in stages allows for intentional planning for the change process. When we pay attention to the stages of the implementations, we can match our activities to that stage and increase the likelihood of moving successfully through the stage and on to the next stage. We can prepare for the activities and challenges that we will face in the next stage. We will reduce wasted time and resources, and we will increase the likelihood of sustained and improved use of educational practices. So, let's explore stages. Exploration stage considers identifying the need for change, learning about possible innovations that may provide solutions, learning about what it takes to implement the innovation effectively, developing a team to support the work as it progresses through the stages, growing stakeholders and champions, assessing and creating readiness for change, developing communication process to support the work, and deciding to proceed or not. One might start with casual conversations, data reviews, or surveys to determine staff mindset. The installation stage scrutinizes securing and developing the support needed to put a new approach or practice into place as intended, developing feedback loops between the practice and leadership level in order to streamline communication, and gathering feedback on how new practices are being implemented. The initial implementation stage examines the first use of an innovation by practitioners and others who have just learned how to use the innovation. Initial implementation is about trying out these new skills and practices and getting better in implementation. In this stage, we are gathering data to check on how implementation is going and developing improvement strategies based on the data. In the full implementation stage, we evaluate the skillful use of an innovation that is well integrated into the repertoire of practitioners and routinely and effectively supported by successive program and local administration. Note, it does not say that 100% of the staff is completely on board. So this should reduce some feelings of anxiety when thinking about reaching full implementation. And what it looks like. Implementation is not a linear process. There are setbacks, there are failures. There are times when you're going to think, this is not working. We are more likely to have people willingly join in the change journey if we match our activities to the stage of implementation we are in, and if we take into account the stage of engagement of key individuals as well. When we behave as though we are on stage, for example, full implementation, and are really in another, for example, initial implementation, we can create tension, feelings of incompetence, fear, and frustration. Signs of so-called resistance may actually be a signal that we need to reassess our activities to see if they truly match the current stage of implementation. I'd like you to do a little bit of self-reflection again. Think about the times that you have been a part of different initiatives. What did you notice about how they were implemented? Did they start out strong and then fizzle out? How did it feel for you being a part of those initiatives? Go ahead and reflect on those for just a moment. You'll have another opportunity to explore resources on the topic of stages of implementation. During the independent research time, again, please look at your agenda and find independent research too, and you will see 5 resources you can explore. Choose one or two if you wish that looks most interesting to you. Again, we will have 10 minutes to explore and then we'll come together to discuss. And as you explore, please consider this question. Why is it important for all stakeholders to understand implementation science? The component, the UDL component here, is giving choice on the path and pace of your learning, providing a variety of modes for resources. So again, we'll have 10 minutes and we will come back at 1:59. If you need a bio break, please do. If you would like to ask a question, make a comment, or tell me something, please use the chat. Ms. Fields, you are absolutely right. Mindset of educators is everything for inclusionary practices. You are absolutely right. One of the things we're working very hard on in the IPP project is to change those mindsets and get the mindset out of this is only for special ed kids. These are for all of our children. Using universal design for learning meets the needs of your HiCap students. It meets the needs of your English language learners. It means meeting the needs of all of your students with one lesson. And if you'd like to know more about that, please contact me or the ESD coordinator in your ESD, and I have that list for you at the very end and on your agenda. Exactly, Christina. She says, I used UDL for my HiCap kiddos often and had to explain why many times. Yes, you do. Because once the students understand the why they're doing this, why should they care about this? How am I ever going to use this? Then they can make meaning and attachment and use it. I was really great in algebra in high school. Super great. Fabulous. Then we did geometry. And the way we were taught geometry was just doing these long proofs, writing out proofs. And I said, why? Can't I just stipulate that Euclid said this 3,000 years ago and it's still good? I really have to do a proof? Nobody explained to me why you do proofs, to enhance logical thinking. Now, I was a sewer, and as you can see behind me, I have a quilt. I am a quilter, have been since I was 6. So had they used quilting or some other textile art that I loved to explain geometry, I would have been all over it. Finding out the area of how much material I needed. How big was it going to be? How big should each of the blocks be? How big should each component of the blocks be? That is all geometry, all of it. And I would have done great. So it's very important for people to understand the why you're doing this. Anybody else have an aha or questions? Did anybody particularly like one of their resource threads or links? You might tell others. Thomasina says, and our organizations often assume that all learners are at the same place in the present level of understanding. Oh, you are so correct. That makes me crazy. Just as we differentiate for students, that is still a much valued practice for adult learners. This will support implementation too, absolutely. This is why when I make presentations, or any of the coordinators make presentations, we have arranged it in a universal design for learning format, which is rather similar to this. Lots of interaction, time for reflection, time for questions, resource and learning at your own pace. So yes, absolutely, Thomasina, you are correct. Okay, we shall move on. and talk about systems drivers. In the last section of our time together, we'll identify system drivers or the infrastructure needed for implementation. In order to build your understanding of systems drivers, we would like you to consider system drivers that help you accomplish tasks throughout your day. For example, what helps you get out of the house? What helps you get ready for work? What helps you meet your needs or share your ideas? Let's start by imagining a family of 7 living in a rural area with 1 bathroom. And in this family, all the members of the house need to be ready to leave the house for work and school by 8 a.m. In this situation, the capacity of the bathroom becomes a key systems driver to the success of this family starting their day, being on time, and even ending their day. The system drivers in our homes also have cultural context. For example, some families sharing 1 bathroom may have little concern for privacy, while others may lock the door and use the bathroom one at a time. This is a generic example of a system driver that may be helpful as we begin to transfer our thinking of system drivers to our schools. Just like within our families and communities, the systems drivers in a school also have cultural contexts to consider. As we continue to discuss the system drivers or necessary infrastructure for change within our schools, we can think about drivers in 3 categories: implementation drivers, leadership drivers, and competency drivers. Let me repeat: implementation, leadership drivers, and competency drivers. In the following slides, we will define and give examples of each driver. Please think about how this particular driver would impact your school or district. One thing that connects all 3 of these system drivers: relationships. It's all about relationships all the time. The stronger, positive relationships you have with staff, family, students, and your community will be key to any system driver we discuss today. Leadership drivers. These focus on providing the right leadership strategies for the types of leadership challenges faced within implementation. These leadership challenges often emerge as part of the change management process needed to make decisions, provide guidance, and support organizational functioning. Leadership challenges can be adaptive or technical. Adaptive challenges are solved through sharing, learning, and leadership. These challenges are often involve problems that are harder to clearly define, and perspectives on the issue are viewed differently from various stakeholders. Technical challenges have clear agreement on their definition and clearer pathways to solutions. Although the work to solve a technical challenge may not be easy, the challenge and the pathway to solve are all very clear. Leadership teams should have a transparent discussion that identifies and defines the technical and adaptive challenges in a given situation. The clear delineation prevents confusion later. Leadership drivers can include addressing mindset, resource allocation, staffing decisions, and involvement of all stakeholders in district and school decision making. For example, a principal and a leadership team could be looking at options for allocating resources and staffing patterns because of the need to reduce student injury and discipline referrals during lunch recess. This leadership challenge could be both technical and adaptive, although the problem can clearly be defined as an increasing number of student injuries and discipline referrals at lunch recess. We also must consider the fundamental issue relates to a cultural misunderstanding of how discipline works at recess. A clear technical solution would be to increase staffing at lunch recess. In this case, the leadership driver at play involves staffing decisions. However, an adaptive challenge that could arise are the attitudes and beliefs around positive discipline and strong relationships with students who need more support with self-regulation and peer relations. In this case, A leader may need to consider how to address mindset and beliefs around how the adults in the building respond to and support students who struggle to self-regulate or engage positively with their peers. A leader may also need to consider culturally responsive strategies and training. If you can think of any other examples, feel free to put them in a chat. Implementation drivers are organizational, administrative, and system components that allow us to create, coordinate, and sustain environments for the delivery of effective services. Consider all of the environments we must organize for effective service within our schools and districts. Environments such as school, a classroom, bus, playground, lunchroom, etc. These mechanisms must remain flexible and allow for continued innovation over time. If we think about implementation of increased inclusionary practices in our buildings through the lens of implementation drivers, we are asking leaders to identify mechanisms that sustain our classroom and school environments, which effectively serve all students in our general education classrooms. Here's some examples of implementation drivers. What are they? What are the mechanisms that create and sustain organizational environments so that students and families experience an effective service? Examples include high-quality curriculum and instructional design framework, utilization of effective inclusionary practices such as universal design for learning, a master schedule that supports all learners, a culture of data-informed decision-making, reporting processes, behavior, and attendance policies. As you think of more examples of implementation drivers, please add them to the chat and share. Implementations are components that are needed to create environments for teachers and school staff to work well in new ways. Competency drivers include professional development and professional learning, instructional coaching, and educator evaluation. Additionally, a reliable schedule of inclusive surveys, focus groups, and individual interviews, and a reliable structure for annual data reviews. Competency drivers are the activities to develop, improve, and sustain educator and administrator ability to put programs and innovations into practice so that students benefit. Can you think of any other competency drivers? Please put them in the chat. System drivers. Here's an overview of all three system drivers. Notice the word fidelity at the top. When we consider the mechanisms at play within each driver's system, it is necessary to consider how the drivers interconnect. If we create a master schedule that allows teachers to co-plan, but the culture and climate of the school doesn't support opening classrooms to one another or to make our practice public, a master schedule alone won't allow for the change needed. Or conversely, if we are sharing in the learning and leadership as a staff to implement use of universal design for learning, say, but the master schedule doesn't allow for time to co-plan, co-teach, or observe each other's classrooms, then we have siloed practice and greatly interfered with our ability to improve design. Schools and districts must both identify and continue to reflect and refine the system drivers at play and implementation and identify which are technical and which are adaptive challenges in any given context. As you consider the strengths and needs of your school, which one of the three system drivers might need to be considered as you begin implementing of inclusionary practices. Consider your choice of driver. Where might your school team get started? As this course comes to a close, Here's our last opportunity to explore systems drivers resources during the independent research time. Because I want to be able to end on time, we will have 5 minutes to explore the resource and come back together. 5 minutes. As you consider the strengths and needs of your school, which one of the 3 system drivers might need to be considered as you begin implementation of inclusionary practices? Considering your choice of driver, where might your school get started? 5 minutes. We'll return at 2:15. 2:15. And it says 2:15 on my clock, so we will move ahead. Consider how your knowledge base and or mindset has changed throughout the session. What have you learned and how have you grown as practitioners? What will you do with this information today, tomorrow, or in the future? Reflecting on your learning today, in the chat, please complete the following sentence. I used to think, and now I think. You can just put the 2 words. In the chat, please say, I used to think blank, and now I think blank. Please put that in the chat for me. As we're wrapping up, if you are interested in learning more, the AESD is teaming up with AWPS, the principals, to provide continued learning on UDL and inclusionary practices. We will be offering additional learning opportunities in the future. Additionally, inclusionary practices coordinators are available in each ESD to provide ongoing consultation and support as you continue to learn and create a culture and systems to support inclusion. You can visit our website to learn more. Our website contains the contact information for each of our regional inclusionary practices coordinators. Please connect with any of them with any questions about continuing your learning. Their information will be at the bottom of this page, bottom of the page of your site page. Our website contains the contact information for each of our regional inclusionary practices coordinator. Please contact them with any questions. And I'm going to put those links in the chat for you, just in case it's easier. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. I used to think that you could move new initiatives along quicker, but now I know that it takes a 4 to 7 year process. Yes. Michael, I was too slow at implementation, and now I know that we are not given enough time to implement with fidelity. You are absolutely right. Ryan, I used to think I was the only one excited about UDL and thinking through the diffusion of innovation cycle. Now I know I'm not the only innovator early adopter out there. No, you're not. I used to think that inclusion can be easily implemented, but now I know that it takes years of implementation of practice. I used to think that readiness as part of the competency drivers and making the connection between what teachers have the ability to do and the desire to do has always been tough. You're absolutely right. Now I see that building the foundations for a growth mindset is part of addressing the knowing-doing gap as much as the will versus skill gap. You're right. I used to be far less aware of the significance of adopter categories. They do make a huge difference. You're absolutely right. And I always used to, when I was a principal and head of school, I always thought of the adults as my students. They were my class. and how I presented information to them, how I introduced initiatives and things like that, very greatly. And now I know how to do that after learning all this stuff. I wish I'd known it before I started. It would have been much easier. I used to be far less aware of adopted categories. I have included my contact information. If you would like to contact me directly, you may. Please do not feel you have to go exclusively through your own ESD person. I can get you started. I can give you to the right person. I can help answer some of your questions and connect you with people and with some programs. The Inclusionary Practices Project is free to schools this year. We have been fully funded by the Washington State Legislature for the next year. Our time and the modules and everything, the programs and the materials are all free to you. And we can discuss how you can possibly pay for maybe some teacher leaders, some cadre to work on this outside of the areas, but get clock hours and things like that. There are many, many ways to get this started. If there are any questions, I'm going to remain here. And thank you so much for your attendance. I really appreciate your attention and your involvement. Good luck. Have a wonderful day. I used to think that implementation process would take less time. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Remy. You're more than welcome. My pleasure. You're welcome, Samantha. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad it was useful. There's so much more to know, but this is just sort of a tip. Tip of an iceberg. I used to think implementation for 7 years. I now know that the implementation identifies the drivers and framework for our success. I also used to think longer than 3 years was because it wasn't pushy enough. No. I used to think that inclusionary practices could be modeled by good teaching and conversations, reasoning with colleagues. And now I know that educating not only my peers, but all staff and students on inclusionary vision is the way to equity for all. Absolutely. You're welcome, Jennifer. Thank you. John, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. You are most welcome. Imagine how your teachers could keep your students engaged and focused if they use some of these principles. You say, takes good teaching and it makes it sparkle. And the thing is, your teachers don't really have to do anything differently. They just have to plan differently and make different decisions about how to present material, how to assess materials and things like that. But that's part of the theory, which is on Wednesday at 2.